Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Between the Covers. My name is Bradley Shaw, and this evening I'm talking to Claudia Sultan, who's the author of A Life with Uncertainty. Good evening, Claudia. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Very good, for all things considered, during a lockdown in Melbourne. But we're surviving. And speaking of surviving, I understand this book, A Life with Uncertainty, is about your own story and survival. So please tell our listeners what the book is and about for you as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this is my first story, so my first novel. It's basically it's a true story of a young Australian-born Lebanese woman of Islamic faith suffering from a rare autoimmune disease called Scleroderma. Now, the story is divided into 3 stages of my life. Before I was diagnosed, from the onset of my disease to my current physical state. In the book, I share stories of my loud and lovable extended family, a bit about my high school crush, and lost opportunities, which all lead back to my Islamic faith that helps me to find acceptance in my current state. Now, in the book, I do actually address my current life with the disease, but there's a lot of sense of confusion, disbelief, and sadness that comes with the journey. To see my strength to preserve and maintain a relatively normal life and my efforts to maintain my independence.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a journey, but it's what I've been through to be here today.
Yeah. No, you're very brave. You're very honest, and as you say, you kept your faith in the book as well. A lot of expressions that you've shared. So, if I can ask, when did you get diagnosed with the disease, and how did you feel when that happened? That moment when you realised that was
so I was diagnosed back in 2013, actually. Funny enough, though, I really didn't take it seriously head on. So I was standing actually outside my office building smoking a cigarette, and when I first noticed that the colours of my fingers had changed, and I didn't think anything of it. But it wasn't until the same thing happened when I was in the office a few days later, the colour of my fingers changed again. And so I decided to look further into it. So I consulted with a family doctor, who then referred me to a vascular specialist, then to a rheumatologist, and then I got diagnosed with Scleroderma. So
Wow.
I was more in a state of shock. But so it was a bit disappointing.
Did you find that was a common thing as you learnt about the disease? Did you find people had a lot of denial, or as they were diagnosed, they sort of took time to process and accept? Did you find that was part of their learning?
Look, absolutely. When I think I relied heavily on the rheumatologist to educate me about the disease, but I didn't take it upon myself to research the disease, and because I did actually go through a period of self-denial. I guess I couldn't accept what was happening to me. Like, how could something like this happen to me when I had my life mapped out? It was a shock for myself and my family. It's not something that you expect to happen to you, but
No, of course not. No. So were there big life changes you had to adapt to it? Have you changed? Have you found things, as you say, planned out? You had a planned out life. How have you adapted that? Have you still found good goals and purposes and a construct that fits the diagnosis with you?
Look, I won't lie. There are a lot of limitations with the disease.
Yeah.
I'm still able to move forward with my life and plan, but I always have to remember that I still have Scleroderma, and there's things that I can and I can't do. But in saying that, that's not going to stop me from living the life that I want and move forward and doing the things that I enjoy and I love to do. So I think it's all about just adjusting your routine and just I guess finding things that are comfortable for me in my space.
Absolutely, yeah. As I said, it's been a brave journey. So Now, normally I ask the question of authors, what challenges did you have writing the book? For you, I'd like to know, like, what not only was the challenges, but also what was your real motivation to writing the book? I mean, here you are in the middle of learning to adapt your lifestyle to a disease that you pretty much didn't understand at the start, and yet you decided to write a book and share this journey. I mean that's amazing. What was that motivation for you? Was that part of the process?
Oh, actually, look, to be honest with you, if you asked me 10 years ago, would you write a book? I'll be like, no way, I have no time to sit there and write a book. But I've always loved a good read. And the thing is, I thought to myself that I really do want to, I just want to get a message out there, important message out there for others that have scleroderma or any even with an autoimmune disease. And it's my mother that actually encouraged me to write the book. And when I started writing the book, it brought a lot of memories, good and bad. But being able to put these feelings, these painful thoughts on paper was tough, but I did it. I mean, I found the whole task quite challenging and a bit daunting, to be honest. But the more I wrote, the easier it became. And I was constantly reminding myself why I am writing this book and what I aim and what I'm hoping to achieve. And to be honest with you, writing this book has actually helped me acknowledge my pain and my suffering. And really part of my path of self-discovery. So I feel like I've got that closure that I needed to find to get that happiness and comfort in my current state.
Absolutely. No, it's a beautiful story you've shared. Now, the other thing is too, you would have learnt a lot about the disease. I think that I could see that in the writing. You've researched it and understood it and talked to the doctors and shared that with them, that experience of learning to help others learn, you said. So when normally I ask as well, whether your family support your writing, and you just mentioned the mother did, but how has your family been with this adaptation as well, this acceptance and this journey you've been on? Have they been there with you? How has that been for them?
Look, it was tough for them. In the beginning, my mum was in denial. She couldn't accept what was happening to me. And I think she rejected the idea of the stem cell transplant. I mean, when the rheumatologist said to her, she needs to have a stem cell transplant as quickly as possible, Mum was ready to object. So she couldn't see me go through that. And but look, we did have a family meeting and really go through the pros and cons of the stem cell transplant. And we decided that it was the best thing for me to improve my quality of life. But my parents and my siblings have been my supporters from day one. And I'm to this day, I'm grateful for their unconditional love and their ongoing support. Like when I was in hospital, a lot of roles and responsibilities had changed. But saying that, I had to, we've been a great team working together, and still to today, they still continue to provide me with the ongoing support, the comfort, and they're always there for me. So wonderful, and when I told them I'm writing a book, I mean, they will just, I think they're super excited about reading it. They just can't wait. So
I know, I think we've already got some orders from your family, which is great. But that was great. It's great to see the support. That's what I mean. I admire that. So tell us, there's a lot of content in the book. There's a lot of things and moments in the book that you've shared. But what didn't you include in the book? What did you find too hard to share, to write? Just a snippet, not a detail, but just, were there things in there that you couldn't share?
Look, I was really, really honest. So I opened up, about a lot of things, but I think there was one thing that I didn't elaborate on, and I think I briefly mentioned it, but that was death itself. And suicidal thoughts. And although it's not something that I was leaning towards or heading down that track, it lingered in the back of my head, in my mind. And it was always the thought that, oh my God, like, how much more pain do I need to go through?
Yeah.
Is there a magic pill that I could just take to take away my pain and my suffering?
Yeah.
So, I didn't want to disclose this information in my book, and I know it's going to upset a lot of people, but I did, actually think about it. So, yeah.
Well, naturally you would. And it is hard to see. You weren't writing the book to gain sympathy. I know that. And,
no, absolutely.
Many people have those thoughts selfishly of taking their own life. And of course, none of them have to go through the extremities of yourself. So there's certainly elements of sympathy and empathy to that cause. But the writing of this story must have been part of that process of acceptance and saving that focus of attention on the positives as well, as you say.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So if I can ask too, like, your family's been wonderful and supportive, but outside of your family network, who inspires you to be your best self? When you have those days when you're down, when you're feeling like, this disease is going to get the better of you, what do you do? Who's that you turn to that supports you? That you believe?
Look, I've got an amazing network of friends.
Good.
So I've got a group of friends I always turn to for support, and not just support. They're always there through thick and thin. So when I was going through this difficult phase of my life, they were always there for me, and you're always ready to put a smile to my face and cheer me up. So and that's what I do. So when I'm not working, I'm not thinking about what I'm going to, and I tend not to think about what I've been through. So my aim and my focus is just to keep moving forward in my life, spending time with my family and friends, doing the things that I love, and that's my focus right now.
Good. Well, that goes my next question. What do you do when you're not writing? So what are your plans for future books? Have you got an outline? Are you writing still? Do you still have a passion for writing now that this story is sort of partly told? What's your next plan? What are you going to do?
I would love to keep writing. I actually enjoyed it, even though it was challenging because this is a real life story.
Yeah.
But I do enjoy creative writing, and if things do actually go well, I might actually proceed with a second book.
Oh, wonderful. On what? On the continuing with your life story journey so far, or another book, another subject? What else interests you?
Maybe I'm not too sure, to be honest with you. I'm not too sure which direction I'll go, whether it will be fiction or non-fiction, but
a love story, a romance.
Yes, maybe.
Young love there, it's always nice. So when you were younger, and as you said, all your plans changed, what did you want to do when you grew up? What were you going to be? What were your plans?
Well, I actually, when I was younger, I wanted to be a journalist.
Oh, wonderful.
Funny enough, I used to always write up stories and then print them off and sit in front of my parents pretending to be a journalist. I was like they were watching the news, but but when Scleroderma, but then that my career plans changed. I went to uni. I studied psychology, and when Scleroderma got in the way, it did actually change a lot of my career plans and also, other goals I had for myself, and that's unfortunate. And I guess it is what it is. That's life, right? So I'm still working towards those goals.
Yep.
So I won't give up.
No, never do that. Gosh, that'd just be boring. So tell us about your writing process. How many hours did you find you could write a day, and what were the challenges? Did you have writer's block? What was writing like for you as an exercise?
Okay, so I will admit that I couldn't, because I work full time.
Yeah.
It was really hard for me to find a routine during work hours.
Sure.
So I couldn't do that. But what I did is most of my writing was actually done after work and in the evening and on weekends. So and most of my ideas were written down on paper. Actually, you'll be surprised how many times I was in the shower and a really good idea. She got out the shower and I jotted it down in my phone.
Scribbling it down, jotting it in your phone. Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, inspiration will hit you in the most unlikely places.
Absolutely. Or if I'm falling asleep, trying to fall asleep, and I did, and I'll quickly get up and go write it down. So it did a lot. It did.
Yeah.
So, but I
good.
Eventually.
So in that context, then, so you're going through the process of writing the book and finding all the challenges of inconvenient inspiration. What would you say you developed an interesting writer's quirk? What was the thing that you sort of noticed, gosh, this is weird to do, but it helps you write better? Like, some writers have to sit in a certain chair, have to look at a certain view, have certain music playing, some write naked. What did you find was writing for you as a quirk that you noticed?
Oh, for me, writing as a quirk, I think I mentioned before, writing on paper. That was my number one thing. I think that's when all the ideas came to me, and I don't think I found it challenging just to write during the day, because I was always navigating around work and family events or emergencies. So it was just easier for me just to write at night and also write on paper, and then read and type my notes. And I have that was full on.
Has any of your family had a snippet or read through some of the pieces of it yet? Or is it just they're totally oblivious to they've just seen you working hard on it, not know what it is yet?
No, actually, I have read maybe a paragraph or so from the book a few times to them. And I did actually print it off, the final version. And I was going through it myself for editing, and my brother actually tried to steal the manuscript from me because he wanted to read it. So, but no, they haven't read the whole book yet.
Well, that's exciting. Well, they're looking forward to something pretty good, I'm sure. It's a wonderful book. And for those people listening, if I can just say, it is available everywhere books are sold. And we do ask you to go to your local bookstores to support local business. You can buy it online at our website on the screen. But please support Claudia's journey and understand what this is all about. So now, getting back to you, Claudia, let's ask about what you do when you're not writing. Do you read? Do you play video games? Do you work a lot, obviously? What are you doing now with yourself when you're not writing?
Yeah, well, when I'm not writing, like I previously mentioned,
you hang out with your family a lot.
Time with my family and friends. Yes, we're very family oriented. If I'm not doing that, I'm actually I love gardening, and so I'm also learning my way around the kitchen. So basics. I love my 80s music, so dancing, and I time to time. So
wonderful.
Any chance I can get, I'll read a book. So
good. And who's your favorite author who you read?
Well, actually, James Patterson. I'm a fan of his work. Yes.
Yeah. Well, you never have a shortage of work for James Patterson to read.
I know.
Every time you go into a bookstore, there's like 10 books of his. It's like amazing.
That's right. They're all in front of my video. They're everywhere.
It's like James Patterson must do nothing. He must just write. Never sleeps.
Write all day long.
So, what is for you? Because one of the things I love about this book is you've written it in such an earnest way, and there's no ego, there's no falseness, there's no, preaching of it. It's just a situation that you are dealing with in such an honourable way. So for you, as this new author, what's literary success? What does that look like for you? What would you identify as being successful?
For me, it would be, I guess, like my main important message here is to raise awareness. I mean, there's a lot of people out there that have scleroderma, and there's people out there that don't even know what scleroderma is. They've never heard of it. So, I mean, I would love to get the word out there. I would love to hear people talk about what it is, share their stories, with the world, find their voice and just share their experiences, because I mean, we all have our unique experiences, with the journey. And I think the biggest success for me is that being able to express themselves, tell the world how they're feeling, what they're going through, what the disease does to you, and also be able to move forward with their life. That at some point that we want to cry, we want to scream, but that should not change how we perceive ourselves. And it took me a long time to accept that being somewhat different is absolutely okay. And that was part of my self-discovery and recovery process. And I think it would be my biggest success to see people out there that do have scleroderma, that are able to move forward with their life and grow and create new experiences, and just not just settle with I have scleroderma and this defines who I am, because it doesn't.
That's right. And that's not just that prognosis, but others as well. Others, you said.
Oh, absolutely. Not just
understanding that as human beings. Yes,
that's correct.
You can sustain and survive and just adapt. And it is hard. I'm not undermining that you've gone through a huge experience, a huge growth and understanding. So on that note as well, I must ask, for you, in writing the book, what was that hardest scene for you to write? What was the hardest thing to share in the book?
The hardest thing for me to share? I think the hardest thing for me to share in my book was that, I guess, that uncertainty of knowing that, will I have another 5 or 10 years to live? Because with scleroderma, there's no cause and there's no cure. And so it's unfortunate, it's sad, and it's very, very heartbreaking, but there's no cure to have, that there's no cure for us. And I think the hardest part, that I have no roadmap or no timeline of how long I'm going to be here on earth. So once the disease attacks your entire immune system and it starts thickening the walls of your immune system, that's much it. Your life's over. It can turn you into stone. And I think that's probably the hardest part, that I wrote about it, but it was quite upsetting having the absolute truth and reality of the disease.
Absolutely. It's terrible. And there are some terrible, horrible diseases out there that affect people, beautiful people like yourself, that you wonder why. But the strength of it is that you survive, and you deal with the days as they come, and you get on with it, and that's great. And the thing that, as I said, I love about the book was there's no feeling sorry. It was a real honest and earnest approach to the practicality of that disease and the lifestyle you have to adapt to.
Yeah,
so, and I admire that. You did a wonderful job.
Thank you so much.
So, on that note, as you've be a writer now, and you have a new book out. If you were going to talk to somebody about writing a book, what would you tell them? What would you say would be the most important thing a new writer would need to know? Now that you've evolved into becoming a published author, what have you learnt?
I think I would tell them first to do your research. That's very important, but it's also important to have a theme. And finally, whenever ideas come to you, make sure you always write them down and get someone to proofread your work. That's what I've learned. Yeah.
Very good. That's good. And did you enjoy the process of publication? Did you enjoy the editing and the design? And did you enjoy seeing your book become what you envisaged or hoped it would be?
Absolutely, yeah. Look, I have to say it's been a very, very smooth and clear process for me. There's been no obstacles, so I'm very pleased with the overall publishing process. Yeah.
Good. I'm glad you're happy. That's great. So tell me also now, you may or may not know, it might be an announcement for you and for our listeners, but at this stage we're planning our independent authors, what's called the Independent Australian Authors Symposium in Sydney in September. Will you be attending there for our listeners perhaps to meet you and sign copies of your book and talk to you in person, or will that be something that we may not have the pleasure
Oh, no,
of it this
absolutely.
time.
I'll definitely be there.
That'd be wonderful. I'd love to have you there. I'm going to meet you regardless. I'll come out and have a coffee or lunch with you, I hope. But and your wonderful family. I can imagine a great big. Your mother would probably cook up a storm. There'd be a huge. Yes. I had an Italian friend one time, and I went to Christmas lunch, and oh my God, she kept saying, because I'm a rather thin person, I was a very thin boy, and she was like, eat, and she kept showing all this pasta and food and bread, and I was like, oh my God, I was full for days. So yeah, no, I love that those families that share the meal.
Yeah, I think when you leave, you'll be taking home with you a bag of leftovers, plenty of plastic containers. Let's just say that.
Right. I could imagine a lot of that. That's great. I look forward to it. Well, Claudia, it has been lovely talking to you as always, and I thank you for sharing and for writing this book and putting it into the world, because I think it's a book that's important for people to understand more of. People who have these afflictions and, like you, have fought through them and still plan to. And I love that. I love your aspiration to living, and that's inspiring too. So have a wonderful night. Thank you again. Everybody listening, please go out and buy this book. It's a wonderful message and an incredible journey of a young woman. So thank you for listening tonight. We're very grateful to you. Support indie authors and always remain, positive, strong and happy in your life. And Claudia, thank you. I love your work and looking forward to working with you again. I hope in the future on other books, if that comes out for you.
Thank you so much.
No worries. Well, have a great night. See you, everybody. Thank you for listening, and take care. Now.